back online. Count it all joy, Charles is back online.
Welcome to the broadcast. This is the Equally Yoked Show. Glad to have you today as we go over what is going on with New York, Mamdani. But first, since we've kind of been on this for a little while in the comments, let's hear a little bit from the Bananas and Rice girl. Excuse that. She's got a word for us. And I think it's a very important message. Here we go.
So I'm Somali. I'm proud to be Somali. To me, being Somali isn't just eating bananas with rice. It's a lot. It's like it's an interesting thing. It's very hard to describe what it means to be Somali. And
I still don't know what this means. I still don't know what it means to be Somali. I mean, I'm not a Somalian, but what she's referencing here with bananas and rice, I really don't know, and I still don't get what she's saying. But when it comes to Mamdani, of course, Mamdani, the voters are a little bit upset. Should I say a little bit upset? Maybe a lot. I don't know. Maybe they are furious concerning what is happening in the latest release of the Epstein files. Now, again, these are merely allegations. And of course, the fact that her name is in these emails, what sort of ties does she have to I was going to say Ilhan Omar, but her ties that she probably has a lot of ties to Ilhan Omar. I don't know. Ties to Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein, gvacation at gmail.com. Here's the email that was sent by Mira here. And so this is the email. If you can see, it says just left Ghislaine's townhouse after party for film. Bill Clinton and Jeff Bezos were there. Jean Pigozzi. No, I'm sorry. This is from Peggy Segal. Sorry. Director Mira Nair, etc. Film received tepid reaction, although women like it much more. Hilary Swank and gear at stupid party in Bloomingdale's cheap sportswear department. Very weird. Studio went from free party to store and windows for a month. Going to be in Wall Street tomorrow. More to come. XOXO Peg. So what does this mean exactly? Is there anything that, that is implicated here? And so here's some type of community note by City Desk NYC. And it says, Mira Nair's Epstein after party attendance isn't a footnote. It is a window into the elite rot Mamdani's built his career on. His mother schmoozed with predators and oligarchs while he preaches abolish ICE and tax the rich. The hypocrisy is staggering. Now, what's interesting is you have his voters who are seemingly beginning to turn on him because this is the latest video happening right outside of his mansion that he just moved into, which the name of the mansion is slipping my mind right now. If you guys can tell me, it starts with a G, I want to say. Anyway, despite that, this is a group of protesters who are outside saying shame, calling out Mamdani, trying to figure out what's going on. They said, hey, we supported you. Here we go. Let's take a look at this clip.
That's right. We know about your mom. Now listen, we was with you, Zoran. We voted for you, Zoran. We advocated for you, Zoran. We advocated for you. You ain't getting up and get up in there and lie to us. You lied, Zoran. Shame, Zoran.
Shame!
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 You're
shame. They're calling for shame. They're trying to figure out what's up. They supported him. And so somebody's asking if Mamdani is in the Epstein files, but it's just his mother, and you're freaking out like this. Trump is actually in the Epstein files. Does that mean you're going to freak out about him too? Look, the reality is that we're not talking about Mamdani being implicated here. This is his mother who had some, ties to Ghislaine Maxwell, whatever the reality is. But this shows you, as one of the other posts said, how deep the rot goes, where you're beginning to see people in powerful positions who are ruling over the American people. In this case, as Zoran Mamdani. Now, what this means exactly, we don't know. The only way we're going to find out if investigations are conducted when it comes to these Epstein files. Of course, even with the fact that Trump is, I guess, implicated. No, I wouldn't even say implicated. There's allegations against Trump. And these allegations, these series of images that have been circulating around online, and let me get that for you just so you can see what I'm talking about, because people are freaking out about this when it comes to Donald Trump. However, the reality is that these are tips. They're not verified. They're allegations. And the FBI, there's a very interesting image that everybody's screenshotting. It's not even interesting, but it clearly shows you what this is. So these are this series of photos going around, and everybody's like, dude, just actually look at what you're looking at. If that even makes sense. This complainant was spoken to and deemed not credible, and additional research showed three separate incidents involving police which requested in mandatory psychiatric evaluation. So all throughout this, you have very weird, foul play here when it comes to and people are saying debunked, when it comes to social media going and, looking through this, analyzing it, because this is what social media has been doing over the last couple of days since the Epstein files were released. But let's continue on with Mamdani, because although that this broadcast is not going to be long, we want to focus specifically on what Mamdani is doing, because of course we said we were going to focus on Mamdani's campaign and not even his campaign as well, but otherwise his mayoralship, because he and a lot of people who voted for him were expecting New York to boom. I mean, I'm just going to make a joke. Not even going to go there. It's just dark. So here's New York Post says 8-foot piles of rat-infested trash are chalking the streets around Gracie Mansion, which has gotten kid glove shoveling treatment as Zoran Mayor Mamdani crows he can't imagine how it could get better in the city. And New York is known for this. This is a problem that people have tried to tackle for years on end and still continues to happen. But not only that, is this one of the worst series of events when it comes to this winter storm, where you see this massive snow pile up, and you see Michael Rappaport, who's going and recording some of these cars that are just barricaded in by snow. But this is what you see in New York currently. Rat infested, garbage. I mean, it's a perfect picture of what New York currently is under the current Mamdani regime. And so let's go to Michael Rappaport's clip here. Let's see if we can find it after we've got all this stuff that we got to look at. You know what? I'm going to go and find it for you, because this is an important video to show you concerning how frustrated New Yorkers are. And here's the video here. Let's take you into this image.
Look at this shit. This poor bastard ain't getting out until the spring. Look at this dirt a week after the snowstorm. Look at this dirty hole. Look at this. I don't know what this guy's gonna do. This guy, call your insurance company. Look at this dirt. Where's the mayor to clean this up? They got garbage everywhere, dirty snow. What do you do with this? Where's your shovel now, Mamdani? Look at this. You know how many people fall, break their ankles? Look at this. This is New York. Start spreading the news. And this is on the Upper East Side.
So you think people would be going and making videos like this? Not even just Michael Rappaport. There's so many videos on social media circulating about the terrible, this sort of campaign that Mamdani did, as the winter storm was coming in, saying, look, we've got all these, he's doing this PR of him shoveling snow. And that's all you really see. And people are saying, well, this is not just him doing a stunt. This is him actually picking up the shovel and doing something about it. Talking about these trucks that were to plow snow away. So yes, indeed, New York has always been this way in the sense that trash has always been there, rat infestations with these garbage, lying out in the streets. But people are complaining specifically about the incompetence when it comes to this first winter storm in New York. And so what Mamdani's been, proclaiming from the rooftop is that he's going to fix all of this mess, that he's going to make it better, that he's going to make New York City great. But clearly, with all the grand ideas that he has, even the fact that he's talking about running out of money, that he needs to secure money in specific ways, we're going to look at some of those clips in a moment. Clearly, you can see that Mamdani and his voters are turning on him rapidly. And it's not looking good for Mamdani. Now, we'll only see, he's only just about a little over a month into his position, and it's not looking good so far when you've got this rough of a start. Now, mind you, it's almost seems like there was some, almost a mirror image of what Donald Trump was doing from the very beginning, which was signing a bunch of executive orders. Then you begin to see, and Donald Trump doing all these press conferences. Then you see Mamdani doing the same, right? Undoing these executive orders by the last mayor, Eric Adams. And then you also talk about the amount of press coverage that you've been seeing come from Mamdani, as if they're these huge, announcements that need to be made in this manner. And so as we continue on here, this is Mayor Mamdani, who was recently on an interview, which there's a specific point in here with to go back and just refresh my mind as to what's going on here. But he says, this morning I joined Pix 11 News to announce a new executive order requiring every state agency to designate a chief savings officer. Now, Mamdani is known to, with what he's been saying during his campaign, what he's been saying, even after the fact that he has been now in position, is that he wants to grow the size of government. And this is the Democrat socialist idea, mentality, policies that want to make government big. And so he's implementing these roles and these positions that now the taxpayer is going to have to pay for. And whether they are actually going to prove to be, reliable, accurate, and they're actually going to save money, but requiring every city agency to designate a chief savings officer. Within 45 days, these officers will identify which city services deliver the strongest results for New Yorkers and where we can streamline processes and cut waste. The goal is simple: make sure every public dollar works harder and faster, safer, cleaner, and more affordable for the city. But when you begin to do stuff like this, you're going to run out of money by using other people's money. People have been talking about this since he was running his campaign.
Identify a chief savings officer, and then within 45 days, those officers have to come back to us with a full assessment of the savings that could be pursued, the efficiencies that we're currently seeing, and the programs that frankly need to be sunsetted or are not effective.
Okay, so go ahead, put your John Hancock on that. And that will become officially an executive order as of this moment, right?
Yes, this is now an exetive order, the first to be signed on Pix 11.
There we go.
This is a direct.
Now, continuing on here, this is also another policy that or another press conference that he's talking at, saying this is a post saying New Yorkers are in a state of shock after Ugandan mayor Zoran Mamdani says NYC now faces a fiscal crisis at a scale of the Great Recession. His plan, raising taxes on wealthy New Yorkers and profitable companies. But not only that is he going to raise these taxes on the wealthy, this also trickles down into the middle to lower class. It always does.
We are speaking about a fiscal crisis at the scale greater than the Great Recession.
And so there will not be one single thing that can answer that crisis. It will require us to pursue every single avenue. That means looking inward into savings and efficiencies. That also means raising taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers and the most profitable corporations. And it means recalibrating the relationship with the state. We are speaking.
Now, what's interesting is you actually see Eric Adams, the former mayor of NYC, says, in case anyone was wondering, this is the real motive behind today's press conference. Mayor Mamdani promised a laundry list of free giveaways to buy votes with no plan to pay for them. Now the math doesn't work. Instead of owning the fact that he misled New Yorkers, he's blaming me. Let's be clear. I left him over $8 billion in reserves. This is the same Mamdani who spent years attacking me for not spending enough during the migrant crisis. The only reason those reserves exist is because I ignored him and his socialist comrades who demand we blow billions with no guardrails. Free isn't free. It's just a bill someone else has to pay. Let's check this out.
Eric Adams, New York City, betraying the promise of this city. A mayor who sees a migrant crisis and thinks that the answer is tent cities. Tent cities that are built by the same contractor that Donald Trump hired to build the wall. Tent cities that migrants are saying remind them exactly of the same sites that we lambast when we see them in Texas. So we are here to say it is unacceptable in Texas, it is unacceptable in New York, and it is
comrades. It's my bad. Comrades. Sorry, guys. I was reading it literally verbatim as how it looks. So that is my fault. I get you. You can't even read. Yeah, sure. You know, I'll give you that one. Anyway, so here's what the post is. This is Ben Max saying, NYC DSA. He's posting some of the. Here, let me actually see if I can zoom. I don't know if I can zoom in. If this. No, it's going to go full screen. It's not going to work. Okay, so and other partners organizing to rally 10,000 people to go to Albany on February 25th to push to tax the rich, to fund Mamdani's agenda, close city budget gaps. And it says here this is being led by our time former NYC, the new advocacy nonprofit 501c4 formed to support Mamdani's agenda. Many organizations involved. And so there was also a post that Eric Adams had an X post talking about a $12 billion deficit, where Mamdani's talking about this deficit, and Eric Adams basically said, we talked about this deficit. He says this was an issue and let me see if I can pull it up. If I can't, then we're going to have to move on. But otherwise, this deficit that he was mentioning, and now Mamdani's barely addressing this. And what we're going to do is we're going to probably pass on that comment because I don't have it here. And immediately, oh, here we go. Yeah, this is it. So this says New York City Mayor Eric Adams, September 2023. This issue will destroy New York City. Every community in this city is going to be impacted. It says we have a $12 billion deficit that we're going to have to cut every service in the city. This is going to be impacted all of us.
Migrants a month. One time we were just getting Venezuela. Now we're getting Ecuador. Now we're getting Russian speaking coming through Mexico. Now we're getting Western Africa. Now we're getting people from all over the globe have made their minds up that they're going to come through the southern part of the border and come into New York City. And everyone is saying it's New York City's problem. Every community in this city is going to be impacted. We got a $12 billion deficit that we're going to have to cut. Every service in this city is going to be impacted. All of us. And so I say to you, as I turn it over to you, this is some of the most educated, some of the most knowledgeable, probably more of my commissioners and deputy commissioners and chiefs live in this community. So as you asked me a question about migrants, tell me what role you played. How many of you organized to stop what they're doing to us? How many of you were part of the movement to say, we're seeing what this mayor is trying to do, and they're destroying New York City.
Now, what's also interesting is that we have this video from Kathy Hochul, who's on a interview with NBC New York, and she basically this comment that is addressing Mamdani. Let's take a look at this for a moment, because Kathy Hochul is open about not supporting specific policies that Mayor Mamdani wants to implement when it comes to taxing the rich, when it comes to other issues. And this is one of the portions where she begins to dive into this question here. And let's take a look.
Blue laws say when the temperature drops below a certain temperature, that if someone is outdoors and does not willingly decide to go indoors for their own safety and to keep themselves alive because they don't have the ability, that the authorities have the ability to do that. That's why these laws rarely invoked, but really important during a weather crisis like this.
But you're confident that that's all being enforced, or you're asking about it? Or
I expect it's being enforced, right? This is the law of the city.
On another subject related to the mayor, we heard him announce yesterday, he asked again yesterday about the state raising taxes. And so he says that the state should raise taxes to help him balance his budget. What are you asking the mayor to do about balancing the budget?
We've been having conversations about the time frame he has. He has until February 17th to present his preliminary budget. In the meantime, we've been having conversations with him since the election. You know, my very seasoned senior team dealing with budgets. Like, I met with the mayor and his budget team in my office just days ago, last week, and talking about what we can do to help, but also show us where you're making adjustments. Like, you know, when you're finally now getting under the hood, like you've not had access to this information. So where can adjustments being made, but also, do you really have a full picture right now of all the revenues that are coming in? Because we've been stunned by how high the revenues coming in from the Wall Street bonus taxes are. $17 billion more in unanticipated revenue for the state alone, you know, between this year and next. And that is helping us with our budgeting, and it helps us close the big gaps. So I think they'll take a little more time perhaps to see what those numbers are and get the full picture. So I would simply say, continue to get the full picture, continue the conversation with us, and I don't believe in taxing for the sake of taxing.
But Mamdani does, because in his own campaign on his website talks about that he wants to tax the rich white neighborhoods. And this is something that people warned about, that people didn't know about. And when we begin to mention this on our podcast, and people began to go and do interviews in person with, you know, just on the street sort of, you know, interviews, and they began to ask about Mamdani and his policies, and people didn't actually know that he was there to also tax the white rich neighborhoods. And so this is Mamdani, even though he's addressed this on one of the interviews that he did with, I think it is, I forget what it is. It might be NBC as well, where he basically is asked about this white neighborhood tax. And he says, well, it's not about the race, but the reality is it is about the race. And so when we talked about that on the podcast, you can go and check it out on the channel. You can go and subscribe to the podcast. Check out the latest, the last couple of broadcasts concerning Mamdani. You can go and type that search there and figure that, you know, watch the whole thing and see exactly what you think concerning that. And you can also email me your thoughts, freedom@equallyyokeshow.com. But Mamdani is not looking too popular concerning this. Now, shifting a little bit of, shifting our gears here to the Epstein files, because some of the stuff that we've been seeing online, and just to wrap up the show here in a moment, the stuff that we've been seeing online concerning the Epstein files and all of the stuff that we see here is, of course, people are outraged by what they're seeing. They're seeing all of these allegations. There's allegations being made in these files. And of course, these images that we see that are, you know, somewhat proof of the pudding. Now, of course, Clinton is being held in contempt. And so there's all that stuff going on the back end. We also have the videos of Epstein, some interviews with Steve Bannon and Epstein. We have the interview that was released of Ghislaine Maxwell that we covered on yesterday's broadcast. But what this shows is the elite and how their sort of power is, when it comes to the Epstein files, what do we expect to happen out of this? What do we believe actually will happen from this point on? Will there be any type of prosecutory actions against these high-profile elite folks, such as Jay-Z, such as the ones that are mentioned in the files that have actual credible, allegations that could be, thoroughly investigated further in order to prosecute? Now, of course, people are, and what we've been seeing with the Democrats concerning this, and even Elon Musk being named in the files because he's not really defending himself in a way, but he, somewhat is talking on this matter because he is he's being plastered all over social media. But what he has said so far, and this is one of his latest posts as of today, which I've seen quite a number of people as far as reactions goes. It says, nobody has fought harder for full release of the Epstein files and prosecutions of those who abused children more than I did. Knowing full well that the legacy media, far left propagandists, and those who are actually guilty would admit nothing, deny everything, and make counter accusations against me, saying I knew that I would be smeared relentlessly despite never having attended his parties or been on his Lolita Express plane or set foot on his creepy island or done anything wrong at all. Nonetheless, the extreme pain of being accused of being the opposite of who I am was worth it. The strong must protect those who cannot protect themselves, especially vulnerable children. And indeed, this is somewhat scriptural, so I'm not sure if he's pulling this from the Bible and sort of interpreting it in a way where, it fits his type of language. But the scripture talks about defending the voiceless and standing up for those who cannot stand for themselves. And so he goes to say, especially the vulnerable children, it says, I will gladly accept any amount of future pain to do more to protect kids and give them a chance to grow up and have happy lives. And ultimately, this is what we want for America. We want America to be safer, our streets safer. We want our kids to be out, in the dark, when, just to be able to be, play even after the sun goes down just for a little while longer, to be safe in the streets, not feel like they've got to be looking over their shoulders or the parents have to have them in before the light goes out completely. These times that we used to live in back, when America was more safer, when Democrats didn't have this push to import, during the Biden administration, import millions upon millions upon millions of illegal immigrants in order to keep them in power, we can no longer have that type of America, which was a safe America, an affordable America. So this is Nicki Minaj, who's also been, going to social media and posting some of her comments concerning these Epstein files, saying your favorite artists have been practicing rituals in a satanic cult where they take babies from other countries and mutilate and kill them as a form of a blood sacrifice to their God. You see, when your master is Satan, you constantly shed blood. However, the jig is up. Now I'm going to correct her on one of the, small errors that she makes here. She says, and kill them as a form of blood sacrifice to their God. The G here needs to be lowercase because in the scriptures, the translators, what they would often do is they would capitalize the G when referring to the God, the one true God, that is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so I would put little G there. So my only criticism is that, really. But she says, y'all are understanding that these people have been sacrificing children as a way of gaining and maintaining power. If you ever vote Democrat again, you are just as soulless as they are and will perish. Maybe it's time for me to do some story times, since I was trying not to say what I know, yet they continue to attempt bullying. Also, I won't be releasing an album until my contract is renegotiated and until I tell you about all the sabotage this Rico is finding out about Billboard. And so this is some images of Jay-Z and Beyonce and all these images that are coming out, of course, from the Epstein files. This is Cat Williams. I remember this clip. Let's see what he has to say here in this clip.
It's God's side and the other side. And we don't care nothing about the other side. Period. Period. All of these big dick deviants is all catching hell in 2024. It's up for all of them. It don't matter if you Diddy or whoever you is. TG Jakes, any of them. All lies will be exposed. That's all. And anyone who takes that the wrong way, know why they take it the wrong way. The truth is the light.
Cat Williams is a G. I love Cat Williams. His I used to watch him a lot, you know, when this clips would be really the only clips that you would see viral is Cat Williams clips. And, you know, back when YouTube was, you know, a lot less heavy on podcasts and politics and all that stuff. But Cat Williams is saying some very hard truths here for people to realize that Democrat Party, the only way that they're staying in power is by suppressing the dark, evil, deeds that they've been doing hidden away from public view. And of course, there's corruption on both sides. However, what we've been seeing from the Democrats concerning these Epstein files, what I was mentioning earlier on the broadcast and on yesterday's broadcast, is simply that the Democrats are all hell-bent on getting some type of, dirt on Donald Trump so they can blast this out to social media, to their news outlets, and even CNN going live and talking about how Trump is on these files. Now, they also did a little bit of a prelude to what they were going to say following their conversation, just as they begin to mention Donald Trump, as they say, look, just because their names are mentioned here doesn't mean that there's any sort of verifiable, claims here that implicates Trump in any matter. And the same goes with Mamdani's mom. However, these types of these linkages that we see in these files and what this looks like, again, will we see any level of accountability? And that is something that as to why many of the Americans voted in Donald Trump, is to have accountability when it comes to the Biden administration, especially what we saw during COVID with Anthony Fauci, with all the leaders that were attacking conservatives, that were attacking Turning Point USA, that were attacking churches, and many of those different things. And because Christianity to many of these people are such, as they call it, a cancer, more and more people, even Hillary Clinton saying this, and we've played the clip on the broadcast before, and this is what you begin to see about, the world calling out Christians. But why? Let's take a look at this clip here.
This is a cancer. White evangelical Christianity is a cancer. These are the worst of our country. These are the worst people in our country because they use their religion in two ways, as a weapon and as a shield. They weaponize it whenever they want to and say, we're on the moral high ground. You're a lesbian. You deserve to die. You're a lesbian. The cops shouldn't have revived you. Oh, your parents are Mexicans and they brought you over here. Yeah, you should go to jail and eat worm food. And then when you call them out on it, oh my God, they're after the Christians. How dare they? How dare they? We're so oppressed. White Christians are so oppressed in this country. And they want it both ways because in the religion, that duplicity is taught. You can be morally duplicitous. You thrive in cognitive dissonance. And so this is just a massive, massive problem. And it should come as no surprise to anyone that of this cult that I'm talking about, white evangelicals, I think over 80% went and voted triple trumped.
This is funny because she lives in a country that is founded on Judeo-Christian values. This is a country that is most certainly involved in being the founding of this country was heavily involved in the furtherance of the gospel, as what we read in the Mayflower Compact. As they exited the boat, prior to exiting the boat, they established this document in order to further the gospel of Christ. Now, what they don't realize is even by looking at the documents, such as the Declaration, such as the Constitution, spread out through all of this, you have morality sprinkled through this. Not only that, the conversation of the Creator and that these rights that are given to us by our Creator are inalienable rights, and these rights that cannot be taken away. And so if government gives you these rights, such as the right to worship, especially during the COVID, era, such as Gavin Newsom saying you cannot sing in church, you cannot, church is deemed to be a dangerous place to go to, yet we'll leave bars open, we'll leave, strip clubs open, we'll leave these essential businesses open, but church is not essential. I'm sorry. But the reality is that these people are saying that Christians are going to, they're going to be racist, and they're going to call people out for their sin, and not, all this nonsense about Christians not being loving, which is not even true biblical Christianity. When you actually look at the scriptures, which I doubt, I'm willing to bet that she hasn't even opened the scriptures to read anything in context. Even if she was, debated on this subject, that she would be able to point out accurately what Jesus actually taught concerning the religious folk, concerning how you're to care for your neighbor specifically. And so, hold on one second. This is nonsense here. We're going to do that. How about that? And so it looks like you got to him before me. Appreciate it, Dead Man Lives. So you say here, Rocks, you say she's never read the Bible. I'm willing to bet she has never read a Bible also. Now, this is disgusting, because Christians don't go around like the Democrats, where they will, go and protest ICE, and they will, put their phones in their faces. They will impede law enforcement, and they'll say, they'll call victim after they get arrested. They'll call victim after they begin to, get detained for their nonsense of breaking the law. They call victim. Just like those who went into the church with Don Lemon and this whole group of people who decided it was a good idea to go into a church on a Sunday, impede into their worship service. And what did they expect to happen? Nothing? That they weren't breaking any laws, that they were covered? And just because Don Lemon, who was a journalist and, saying throughout his live broadcast, well, I'm not here with these people. When you can see images of him kissing the one who was leading this group, Nakemia, I believe her name is, where she talks about how she was in belly chains and in shackles, that this is the closest to slavery that she's ever been. God bless you for your wonderful gift. I appreciate that. Sunday. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. I'm not sure. I'm not going to try. I'd probably butcher it. Your YouTube handle. However, let's get to the comments here, because I want to read some of what you guys are saying. And forgive me if I'm reading comments that are out of context, because sometimes there's a lot of chats in here that are, with responses to other people in the chat. So it says, but they cannot erase all that suffering, although bodies, men, women, children didn't matter to the right wing. I'm not really sure where you're going with that comment. It says, Jesus, our King calls us to defend the weak and fight to those who would have pressed them. Yeah, I agree. And there's a biblical precedent to how Christians are to act, especially with even governing authorities, especially when it comes to Christians not obeying authorities for the specific reason of not obeying authorities when it calls the Christian to disobey God. We see this in the Old Testament. We see this with many Christians who were told to stop preaching the gospel, Christians or even believers, such as in Daniel, where they were told to worship the idol, the image, and they would not bow. And so you say here, Rock's voices rooted in politics and social media platforms, but not scripture, should never outrank the word of God. Biblical ignorance is not spiritual authority. Absolutely. And they claim to know scripture as if, they get all these quotes, they find these quotations of biblical scripture and they use them to talk about the foreigner in the land. They'll say, well, the Bible talks about foreigners. What do you say about this? We're supposed to love them. And then you read the context, it completely destroys their argument and they fall flat on their face. The Circle Keeper says, my people don't know our ancestors. We don't even know our religion. All that was taken from us, yet we stand defiance against them, which makes us a target. Intent matters when applying the law. It says, did people who abolish slavery follow the law at the time? If they didn't break the law, slavery would still be legal. And so when we're talking about even slavery, even concerning the slavery that is written in the Bible, we've talked about this before, about chattel slavery, what is the modern day type of slavery, what people try to incorporate into what the scripture says concerning the slavery, the slave in that day. And so what their role was, what the responsibility was of the slave owner, and all this stuff. We've talked about this broadcast on a couple of shows back. However, we can tackle this on another time when we go through some of those details, which we've been saying we're going to do so. And I really want to go through the Leviticus, chapters concerning that. Even in Deuteronomy, I believe we have some there. Somebody says, in both parties, you deflect from truth and claim righteousness based on your group rather than a life you live. Now, righteousness comes from really the way you can tell somebody's righteousness is essentially by their fruits, as Jesus says. You'll know them by their fruits, right? And the way that you can examine a person, examine a Christian, and be honest in your sort of judgment of the Christian, because people like to bring up the passage and say, do not judge, right? But they don't read the full part of that scripture, which is, do not judge lest you be judged with the same measure that you were judging with. And this essentially goes for those that are in the church that are, judging their own brothers. And we even have the passages in Matthew, which I think Mike Winger is doing an excellent job calling out these leaders who are involved in this cover-up culture of abuse that is happening within the body of Christ. And he's doing a phenomenal job by gathering witnesses, by gathering, all these testimonies, by gathering, documents in order to show the people, show the audience. And the purpose of this is to correct the situation within the church and not let the news outlet or the world correct what's happening in the church. Because even the Gentiles, as it says in the scriptures, that the Gentiles, well, there's certain things that the Gentiles don't do that the church was doing in that day, that Paul was seeking to correct them on this matter when it comes to, some weird types of fornication, adultery that was happening within the Corinthian church. You can read more about that on your own if you'd like, but it says we can judge as long as we don't do it hypocritically. We can judge as long as we look at our own eye first, that we don't have a plank or a log in our eye. Because if we begin to call out the speck in somebody's eye, then we have to realize that, hey, wait, we got to call out our own sin first. We got to look at ourselves, examine ourselves, and make sure that we're not going with this log in our eye before we call somebody out to tell them about the little eye booger they got there. So it says, let's see, trying to go back on some of your comments. Somebody said war for independence was over taxes. We have, in a sense, yeah. When we go back to the some of the reasons why for independence, you can see these even in the 13 colonies as to what was going on during that time. We've covered that on this broadcast. We can go on another time when we look at these documents. We've looked at the 13 colony letters concerning the colonies and their independence and such. We'll just have to look at that. And also, finally, one thing that I want to mention before I end all of this is Iran. Now, where are all of the Palestinian protesters when it comes to Iran? Iran has literally killed, murdered well over, the numbers are hitting close to 60,000 people are reporting on the ground. What the IRGC is reporting and what other reports are saying is that the number is from 30 to 60,000 people that are being killed. And so Trump is looking to possibly make some moves within the next couple of days. And what comes out of this is going to be interesting as we begin to see the geopolitical shift in that region. And so we're going to be looking more at that because life is precious. And the fact that these people are being killed for the cause of bringing the power back to the people, the Persian people, and not putting power into these leaders who seek to destroy, to silence, to, really what Satan does is he seeks to steal, kill, and destroy. And Satan is utilizing that to the maximum extent. And of course, we're seeing a lot of these Christians that are the underground Christians, some that have been killed and some that are, they're preaching the gospel. Many are being saved. Some type of, maybe, I don't know, it's too early to call here when it comes to maybe this is a revival or what this might be. And so, I just want to, finish up the podcast and say thank you guys so much for being here as we covered what was going on with Mamdani, covered what is going on in New York, and what is going to happen with his voters and how they're going to take, the series of events that comes next, whether his mom, whether anybody investigates into that further or what people find as these documents are being reviewed by people on social media, literally every hour. You're seeing people come up with new information about this and that. And so, just switch the screen over. But however, you say, I thought this was a political live stream. It is a political live. It's a both. We're a mixture of both here. We want to not interpret the Bible by what we're seeing in our current events and our headlines. We want to look at the Bible and filter the world through a biblical lens. That's important. And see how we can apply the scriptures to our lives. So, guys, thank you so much for being here. Subscribe to the Equally Yoked Show if you haven't yet already. Like the show, share the show, and of course, continue to join me back on this broadcast. Tomorrow, Lord willing, we'll be back on the broadcast and we'll be discussing more of these issues further. However, if you guys enjoyed what you heard, please consider subscribing. And if you also want to, there's also the super chat feature and the super thanks feature that is open for those that want to support this channel monetarily so we can grow and get people on the show as far as guests, as far as callers. We're looking to do that in the coming future as there begins to be more support when people, do simply just push subscribe on that button, because the majority of the viewers that watch this channel are not subscribed and they come back here pretty regularly, probably because you see this put out to your feed, quite often. So, and you're not going to see any more higher production than this show when it comes to the shorts format. I can guarantee you that. So glad to have you guys here. And we'll see you guys in the next broadcast. This is the Equally Yoked Show. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.